In the final century of the Jade Dynasty, the land of Tianzhou stood at the edge of ruin. Warriors fought for fading thrones, temples fell to dust, and the wind carried the cries of forgotten gods. Where once light reigned, now greed walked in human form. Among the broken stones of the old capital wandered a man no one saw, Li Feng, a beggar. His robe was a patchwork of rags, his eyes dimmed by hunger, his hands trembling not from age, but from endless rejection. He begged not for gold, but for a taste of kindness. None came. Every day he sat beside the bridge of the withered river, watching the nobles cross on horses shod with silver. Every night he lay under the echo of temple bells, counting stars that never answered prayers. The world had forgotten him long before he learned its cruelty. He used to dream of a mother's voice, of laughter by a hearth, of the scent of steamed rice. Now his dreams were only of rain. Yet destiny listens even to the whispers of the lost. On the day the sun turned crimson behind the smoke of burning villages, Li Feng found himself pushed from the marketplace, beaten for stealing a crust of bread. He ran without knowing where his feet carried him, through alleys, through fields, into the forest where no one dared to go. The wind grew silent there. The birds fled, and in the stillness, he tripped over something half buried in the soil. A stick, plain, old, wooden. He laughed bitterly. Even the forest mocks me. A stick for a crownless beggar. He picked it up, meaning to use it as a walking aid. But the moment his palm wrapped around the grain, warmth surged through his arm like fire awakening stone. The forest trembled. Leaves spiraled upward instead of falling. A whisper touched his heart, not his ear. Bearer of despair, you have been chosen. He dropped the stick. It hovered in the air, turning slowly, glowing faintly with threads of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Chosen for what? He whispered. To restore balance, the voice answered, or to destroy it. Then the light vanished. Only the stick remained, lying harmless on the ground. But when he touched it again, he could feel the rhythm of the earth beneath his feet, the breathing of roots, the pulse of rivers, the sigh of mountains. Fear and wonder tangled inside him. He fled the forest, but the stick followed, floating quietly at his side. Days passed. Strange things began to happen. When wolves cornered him at night, the stick shone and the beasts bowed before him. When he thirsted, dew gathered in his palm. When he wept, the wind answered with music. Rumors spread through the villages. A mad beggar walking with a living staff, speaking to the air, leaving trails of green where his feet had touched dust. Children followed him, laughing. Old men crossed themselves and muttered of spirits. Li Feng did not understand. He only knew that he no longer starved, that the world itself seemed to watch him. One morning, as mist blanketed the valley, he reached the gate of an ancient temple half consumed by vines. There he met the monks of the Jade Order. They bowed, not to him, but to the staff. The eldest, Master Shun, studied Li Feng for a long moment. Do you know what you carry? Li Feng shook his head. It is the staff of eternal breath, Shin said. Born from the root of the first tree, older than heaven's fire. Once every 10,000 years it chooses a soul not of power, but of emptiness, one pure enough to contain the balance of all things. Li Feng laughed, a sound bitter and cracked. I am no saint. I am a beggar who barely remembers his name. Then you are perfect, the master replied. Only the empty bowl can hold the ocean. And so, the beggar became a student of the temple. Days turned to months. He swept floors, fetched water, learned the language of stillness. The monks taught him that the staff did not give power. It revealed what already slept inside. It was not a weapon. It was a mirror. Li Feng meditated under waterfalls until his body numbed and his mind opened. He learned to hear the hum of stones, to see light behind darkness. With each breath, he grew stronger, not through force, but through awareness. Yet in the corners of his heart, the hunger of the old world still whispered. He remembered laughter turned to mockery, the pain of being invisible. Sometimes, at night, he stared at the staff and wondered, if he truly wished, could he make them all kneel? Master Shin sensed the storm growing within him. The world will test you, he warned. When power meets pride, balance cracks. But Li Feng only bowed. He believed he understood. Then came the war. Far beyond the temple, the warlord Han Ju rose from the northern plains, forging an empire of iron. His soldiers burned villages, enslaved farmers, shattered temples. The Jade Order was declared heresy. One by one, the monasteries fell. Only Shin's temple remained, hidden among the peaks. Until the night the fires reached even the clouds. Li Feng returned from meditation to find smoke curling through the halls. Monks lay wounded, the air smelled of blood and steel. At the center of the courtyard, Master Shun faced the warlord's men, unarmed. Li Feng ran to him, but an arrow struck the old master's chest. Shin turned, smiled faintly through the pain, and whispered, "Do not seek revenge. Seek balance." Then he fell. Something inside Li Feng broke. He lifted the staff. Thunder answered. Lightning split the night as if the heavens themselves had drawn a blade. When the smoke cleared, no soldiers stood. Only the beggar remained, eyes burning with power too vast for flesh. He fell to his knees, trembling. The staff hummed, alive with sorrow. Bearer of despair, the voice whispered again, "What will you become?" And the wind carried the question into silence. The morning after the storm was silent. The temple lay in ruins, its once sacred bells melted into pools of bronze. Li Feng stood among the ashes, the wooden staff in his hand glowing faintly as if mourning the dead. He buried Master Shin beneath the old cedar tree. No tears fell. The grief was deeper than tears could reach. He whispered, "You asked me to keep balance, but the world has no balance left." The wind stirred, and the staff pulsed once in answer. It was not approval, it was warning. Days passed in solitude. Li Feng wandered the mountains, haunted by the echo of dying prayers. He heard the cries of distant villages, the screams of innocence under Han Ju's rule. Each voice carved a wound deeper into his spirit. One night, as he sat before a dying fire, he heard the whisper again. Balance begins where vengeance ends. He clenched his fist around the staff. "What is balance?" he asked. "In a world drowning in cruelty. If the gods will not act, then I will." At his words, the flames rose higher, shifting to blue, and within them appeared visions, cities burning, armies marching, thrones crumbling to dust. At the center of it all stood Li Feng himself, crowned in light and shadow. The fire hissed and died. Only darkness remained. From that night, the beggar began to walk the world again, not as a man of prayer, but as one chosen by fate. He crossed the deserts of Lan, where the sand whispered secrets of forgotten kings. He walked through forests that breathed like living creatures, where he met the hermit called Yun Lao, a wanderer who spoke with the wind. Yun Lao bowed low when he saw the staff. "The world turns its back on the divine," he said. "Perhaps it needs to see power once more." Li Feng stayed with the hermit for a season. He learned to draw strength not from rage, but from rhythm. He learned to command the air, the soil, the pulse of rivers. He became a living vessel of the elements. But the staff began to change. Its wood grew darker, heavier. Its hum deepened to a heartbeat. At times, Li Feng felt it think. When he meditated, it whispered. When he dreamed, it showed him faces, kings, warriors, gods, all falling before his hand. He woke one dawn to find the staff rooted into the earth, sprouting tiny leaves of gold. The hermit gasped. "The staff is awakening," Yun Lao said. "It means your path nears its peak. But beware, every awakening demands a price." Li Feng nodded, yet his heart beat faster. He felt the world bending slightly toward him, as if destiny itself began to orbit his will. In the years that followed, he gathered followers, peasants, monks, exiles, all drawn by tales of the beggar who commanded lightning. They called him the keeper of the staff. He called them seekers of balance. Together they traveled from kingdom to kingdom, freeing villages from warlords, breaking chains, feeding the hungry. Where he walked, famine ceased. Where he spoke, rebellion kindled. But with each victory, a shadow deepened behind his eyes. For the staff was not content with peace. It yearned for unity, absolute, perfect, unbroken. And unity, whispered the voice, can only be forged through control. At first, Li Feng resisted. He meditated for hours, reciting the words of Master Shun. Balance cannot be ruled. But the voice grew stronger. It was not evil. It was logic. You see how they suffer. You see how they destroy each other. Give them order. Give them peace, even if they hate you for it. And so began the change. Li Feng's followers became an army. The villages he saved became territories under his banner. The temples he rebuilt bore his sigil, 2 leaves crossing over a rising sun. He told himself it was necessary, that the world could not heal without guidance. He was no longer a beggar. He was a savior. Then one day, he returned to the capital of the empire that had once cast him aside, the same marketplace where he had been beaten and starved. Now, the people fell to their knees when he passed. He could feel their awe, their fear, and he felt nothing. The staff pulsed again. The same whisper filled his heart. You are close now. When you unite the realms, the world will be whole again. But deep within him, another voice, quieter, human, asked, or will it simply be yours? He ignored it. He began his march toward the north, toward the last fortress of Hanju. The warlord, old but unbroken, had built walls of iron and towers of flame. He called himself the Eternal Blade, master of 10,000 soldiers. When Li Feng's army reached the plains, the sky turned black. Thunder gathered, clouds swirled in circles above him. He raised the staff, and the world trembled. The first strike of lightning shattered the enemy lines. The second tore the gates open. By the third, the fortress was aflame. Li Feng walked through the fire untouched. His voice carried like wind through mountains. Surrender, Hanju. The age of blood ends tonight. But Hanju laughed. Beggar, he said, you think yourself a god because heaven gave you a stick. You are no savior. You are my shadow, born from the same hunger. Li Feng hesitated. For the first time, he saw himself reflected in the enemy's eyes. The arrogance, the fire, the emptiness. Still, he raised the staff. Lightning struck. The fortress fell. And when the storm cleared, Hanju was gone. Li Feng stood alone amid the ashes once more. Victory had never felt so hollow. The staff glowed darkly now, veins of red light swirling beneath its bark. It whispered not words, but emotions, desire, pride, certainty. He realized the truth too late. The staff did not serve him. It amplified him. Every wound in his heart, every sorrow, every dream of power, it magnified until the man who once sought peace now carried the will of domination. He dropped to his knees, screaming to the heavens, "What am I becoming?" And the wind answered with silence. In the days that followed, Li Feng withdrew into solitude again. His armies celebrated their victories, but he felt no triumph. He meditated beside the ruins of a temple, seeking the voice of Master Shun in memory. At last, a memory stirred, a whisper from the past. Balance is not stillness. It is motion between extremes. He realized then that he had become one extreme. The staff, too, had tilted toward him, away from the natural flow. If he continued, the world itself might break. And yet, outside, new warlords were rising to challenge him. People feared him. Kingdoms conspired. He could no longer step back. The tide was already his. He rose, gripping the staff. "If I cannot escape power," he said quietly, "then I will use it to end all power forever." The staff pulsed once, as if in solemn agreement. Thunder rolled across the distant mountains. Thus began the final conquest, the march that would shake heaven and earth. The beggar who sought peace had become the wooden emperor. Years folded into years. From the smoking ruins of war rose a new empire, vast as sunrise. Its heart was not marble or gold, but a single wooden staff resting in the hands of one man. Li Feng, once beggar, now emperor of the unified realms. The wooden emperor. Under his rule the rivers ran clean, the roads safe. Merchants spoke his name with reverence. Children learned songs of the man who ended the endless wars. Every decree carried the quiet weight of justice. Yet beneath the calm surface, the pulse of fear still beat. For no one knew what would happen should the emperor grow displeased. The storm still answered his anger. The earth itself still listened when he spoke. He sat upon no jewel-encrusted throne, only a carved seat of cedar, plain and unpainted, set before the open air. He said it reminded him to remain humble. But humility, once forced, turns to pride in disguise. Each night, he dreamed of the past. He saw the beggar on the bridge, hungry, forgotten. He saw the faces of those who mocked him. He awoke with his hands trembling around the staff, whispering, "Never again." The voice of the staff murmured like wind through deep roots. "They kneel, but they do not understand. You must teach them peace." So Li Feng taught, not through sermons, but through laws carved into stone. No weapons were allowed within his borders. Temples swore allegiance to balance. Even laughter during mourning days was forbidden, for joy must not disturb order. The empire obeyed, order reigned, and slowly, color drained from life. Farmers harvested in silence. Children played beneath banners of discipline. Peace had become a cage, beautiful, gilded, unbreakable. One evening, as rain traced silver lines across the palace courtyard, a small child escaped her guards and ran before him. She held out a wilted flower. "For you, Emperor." He stared at the fragile stem, the dirt on her hands, the fearless honesty in her eyes. Something stirred in him, an ache, a memory. Then a thunderclap split the sky. The staff flashed crimson. The child fell to her knees, weeping though she knew not why. Li Feng seized the staff, horrified. "Enough," he shouted. But the light dimmed only after his heart had turned to ice. He fled the throne room that night, walking among his sleeping people, hearing the silence he had built. He realized then that peace without choice was merely another war. The staff followed him, whispering, "Without order, chaos returns. Without you, they will destroy what you gave." He whispered back, "Then perhaps they must destroy it." For the first time, the staff resisted his hand. Its glow flared, veins of fire crawling across its surface. It spoke not in words but in images. Mountains cracking, seas rising, the world collapsing without its anchor, without him. He saw that he and the staff were now one. If he broke it, he would break himself. If he kept it, the world would remain bound. He sought counsel among the old monks who still remembered the name of Shun. They came trembling to his hall. One said, "Majesty, even the gods bow to you. But remember, the heavens bow before they fall." Another whispered, "The staff feeds on the will of its bearer. Release it, or it will devour you." Li Feng listened, then dismissed them with kindness. But their words sank deep. Days later, an omen arrived. The northern sky burned green, and the rivers turned bitter. The balance of nature was breaking. The staff, alive with his own contradictions, had begun to twist the elements themselves. Li Feng climbed alone to the summit of Mount Ju, the highest peak of the empire. From there he could see his entire creation, cities shining, villages sleeping, oceans glimmering under the moon. He felt both love and dread. The voice came again, louder than ever. "You gave them peace. You are the axis of all things. Without you, they fall." He answered, "Then let them learn to stand." The sky blackened. Lightning wove circles around the peak. The staff throbbed, furious. He dropped to one knee, clutching it. "Show me," he cried, "the truth of your power." And it did. In an instant he saw the birth of the staff, how it had been carved from the root of the first tree that grew in the dawn before time, how each bearer through the ages had used it to restore balance, and how each, in turn, had succumbed to its illusion of perfection. Each age ended when the bearer learned to break it. Each breaking renewed the world. The realization cut through him like light through mist. He had conquered the world not to save it, but to prepare it for release. He descended the mountain changed. His soldiers saw the emptiness in his eyes and knelt, fearful. He said only, "Gather all nations to the capital. The world must hear the last decree of its emperor." They obeyed. From every corner of the realm came lords and peasants alike, filling the plains around the cedar throne. Thunder rolled above as he stepped forth, the staff in his hands glowing with both dawn and dusk. He spoke, "I was a beggar who sought bread and found a world instead. I sought balance and forged chains. I sought peace and created silence. But peace without freedom is death, and power without humility is poison." He raised the staff high. A tremor shuddered through the earth. "Today I return what was never mine." The staff screamed like wind tearing through eternity. The sky cracked open, revealing endless light. The people cried out, but Li Feng smiled. Then he struck the staff against the ground. Light engulfed everything. Temples, cities, oceans. The empire dissolved into rain. When the brilliance faded, the throne was empty. The staff lay in two pieces, lifeless wood. For a heartbeat the world held its breath. Then the first true dawn in centuries rose, warm and unchained. The storm faded. Only the hush of rebirth remained. Where once stood the empire of cedar, now spread open fields of wild grass and rivers clear as glass. The cities were gone, yet the land breathed again. People awoke among the ruins with no memories of conquest, only of a strange dream in which a beggar had lifted the world and set it gently down. For a time they wandered in silence, uncertain of who they were. Then they began to build, not palaces, but homes, not armies, but gardens. They learned to speak without fear, to trade without tribute, to pray without command. The namely phone was whispered like wine through trees. Some said he had ascended into the heavens. Others believed he walked still among them, clothed as a traveler, watching to see if they could hold the balance on their own. Generations passed. The staff, broken in two, rested within the roots of the cedar mountain. Moss covered it. Rain polished it smooth. And in the rhythm of seasons, the pieces began to sprout. Two shoots rose, one pale as dawn, one dark as midnight. From them grew twin trees whose branches entwined as they reached toward the sky. The villagers called them the breath of balance. They said anyone who sat between them could hear the heartbeat of the world. Children played there, listening to the hum beneath the soil. Monks came to meditate, hearing echoes of Li Feng's voice. True strength is not in what you hold, but in what you release. Centuries unfolded like petals. Empires rose and fell again, softer this time, wiser. The legend of the wooden emperor became myth, then memory, then song. Until, one dusk in the far future, when the stars burned low and the wind grew restless, a boy named Kai walked along the same forgotten river where a beggar had once wept. He was poor, hungry, alone. The world had changed its face, yet still wore the same hunger. Kai followed the current until it carried him to the mountain of the twin trees. Between their roots he found a fragment of wood, smooth and warm, glowing faintly with the pulse of a heart long stilled. He touched it, and the wind ceased to move. The birds froze mid-flight. The earth itself waited. A whisper entered his chest, the same whisper that had called through ages. Bearer of despair, you have been chosen. Kai looked around, frightened and amazed. He could see the two trees bending slightly toward him, leaves rustling like voices of countless souls. He held the fragment tighter. I don't understand, he murmured. And the whisper replied, gentle as breath. You will. The glow brightened, then settled into his palm like a heartbeat finding rhythm. He felt warmth, not power. Clarity, not command. He looked up at the sky, where the first stars of a new era shimmered. In their light, he thought he saw a figure standing beside him. Simple robes, calm eyes, a wooden staff whole once more. The figure smiled. Every ending, it said, is only balance shifting its weight. Walk well, little one. Then it was gone. Kai turned toward the valley, the fragment still in his hand. Behind him, the twin trees swayed, their leaves whispering ancient hymns. Before him stretched a world waiting once more to be tested, to be healed, to be broken and reborn. He took his first step. The grass bowed beneath his feet. The air shimmered. And far above, among clouds, a voice like thunder and sunlight intertwined murmured once more. Neither command nor prophecy, only truth. The cycle endures. Balance breathes again. Bards would sing for ages of the beggar who conquered the world and freed it by surrender. They would tell children that even the smallest hand could steady the heavens. In the marketplaces of tomorrow, when someone drops a coin for a beggar, a breeze sometimes lifts the dust in a spiral, and the giver feels a warmth upon the palm. Those who notice smile quietly, for they know what it means. Somewhere, the wooden emperor still watches, not to rule, but to remind. That power is a circle, that every heart is a universe, that balance is never owned. And so the tale closes where it began. A man, a stick, and the infinite mercy of letting go.